And finally, viewers, in the last few weeks, there have been a series of attacks on temples in the United Kingdom. From Leicester to Birmingham, mobs on a rampage have been caught on camera. Their agenda is communal. What's worse is that some sections of the UK media are peddling a narrative attacking the Hindu community. Tonight, they feel that Hinduphobia is for real. People are protesting, and rightly so. Let's debate.
Temples trampled upon in Leicester, United Kingdom. Watch how this mob pulled down Hindu symbols and unleashed mayhem. Mobs wearing hoodies targeted temples in Birmingham. Watch this. So rabid was this mob, commonly charged, that they justified the attack on the Durga Bhavan.
A message from Birmingham to all the BJP and the RSS Hindutva supporters. You're not welcome in Birmingham, you're not welcome in Leicester, you're not welcome in Nottingham, you're not welcome anywhere in the UK. None of your speakers, anyone you're trying to call these hate speakers that come down, we're going to turn up for all of them. So stop.
As Indians in the United Kingdom fight for justice, here is what sections of the UK media reported. Look at these headlines plastered on Western media. Headlines and a spin that openly back Hinduphobia. An attack on Hindu temples with a Hindutva spin.
All we are doing is standing up for ourselves, and they don't like that because they can't control you when they see you standing up and fighting back, or at least speaking up. We're not fighting, we're just peaceful people. We're here saying no more lies.
Very peaceful, quiet protest against the Guardian newspaper for publishing malicious news and fake news, in fact. So, I think it's time they stopped it, and this extends to other Western media as well.
India has, in the recent past, stared back at such attempts to spin a fake narrative.
And the people who believe that they were the custodians and the shapers of India lose ground in India, the more actually some of this debate is going to come outside.
Should India assert itself and call out this open Hinduphobia being openly backed by some Western media houses? Let's debate.
And I'd like to go across first straight to Pandit Satish K. Sharma. He's an author and Hindu scholar joining me from London. I welcome Saloni Belaid, is an activist from London. And I have with us Elizabeth Braw, who's a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. She's joining us from Washington. And we'll have one of those who were the organizers of the protests outside the Guardian office. Firstly, Pandit Satish K. Sharma, very often we have seen that there are a lot of articles written against the Indian community, against Hindutva, against the Hindu community, against people who believe in the Hindu religion. Why is it that now, representatives of the Hindu community in UK are going out saying enough is enough? They went outside the offices of the Guardian saying Hindu lives matter, stop spreading fake news. What is the flashpoint really? Can you explain it from where you stand?
Jai Shri Ram, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this subject. It's vitally important. For the first time on the streets of Britain, we have seen feral hatred expressed in a manner that it's never been seen for such a long time. The voices that were shrieking those hate speech tropes, unbelievably violent and unbelievably irrepeatable. I can't even bring myself to say some of the things that were said. They haven't been seen on our streets. And not only were they seen on our streets, they were not targeting anybody else except our religious identity. So they were focused, they were vitriolic. And not only that, they were widespread. And so this is really what's brought it to the attention of every member of our Hindu community. We were actually just adjusting to this reality that there is a group of people in this country who hate us so much. And the only reason that they've given is some sort of tenuous straw man identity that they have now created and are wanting to proliferate it. Those two were really shocking factors. But the third factor, which really struck us as a surprise, was the degree to which the mainstream media suddenly took fake news, and actually fake news which was intended to incite violence, and proliferated it. The Guardian and the BBC, as far as my understanding is concerned and analysis is concerned, they incited violence even further. They became part of the social media rhetoric, and that's entirely unacceptable. They have always chosen to occupy the moral high ground and be able to present themselves as the arbiters of what is balanced and what is fair, and yet their printed versions, their online presentations have now brought all of that into question. And it was to such a degree, it created such a threat against the community that the community has felt that it now needs to call them out. And this is just the beginning. The Guardian, I know, has been, shall we say, the target for these peaceful protests, but similar exercises are being now prepared for the BBC, and we are going to raise this BBC issue in every forum that we possibly can. In fact, I would really recommend that the Indian government review the manner in which Hindus, Indian origin people, were actually targeted by the BBC, and seriously consider whether they should be allowed to broadcast in India. I know that Republic TV had some issues when they sought to broadcast in the United Kingdom. Perhaps we need to apply the same standard to the BBC in India at this point.
Well, I can just say this, that this bias is so obvious. And in the UK, you see they have these Ofcom rules, very, very, holier than thou, self-righteous rules as far as broadcasting is concerned. If you speak for India, if an Indian channel speaks for India, you are told you are anti-Pakistani and you're targeted. And that's exactly what we faced in the UK. I won't go into that in detail. But I'm curious to know, I'm joined by Nitin Mehta right now, who's one of the organizers of the protests. Nitin, I have spent a lot of time in the UK myself. I've been educated there, both at Oxford and at Cambridge. And I, having spent some time in the UK, have always felt that while there's been a bias against India, right, and against a lot of things, and there's been apparent Hinduphobia, people have sort of taken it for granted and not complained much about it. But today was different. Today there was this sentiment of enough is enough, and that too much stereotyping of the Hindu community is happening. Can you tell us the background of it? Also, Pandit Satish Sharma says now there'll be protests against the BBC as well. Is this going to become more frequent?
Yes, it will. But let's be very clear that there are sections of British society that are not against us. We have to be very clear about this. The ordinary English men and women, they have no issues with us. They respect us. They know that we are a law-abiding, hard-working community. The issues we have is with, I'm sorry to say, Indian left-wing academics who are employed by people like Cambridge and Oxford and even Leicester University. I mean, one of those professors has said really, really nasty things about the Leicester event, and he's an Indian origin academic. And the second is the left-wing media, the likes of The Guardian. They have really sort of gone scot-free, and they just imagine that they can do anything and write anything and get away with it. And funnily enough, the correspondents are seated in Delhi. And I quite often think that if it was China or any other country, they would have been sent back home straight away. It is the democracy of India and the freedom of India, the tolerance of India, that allows these people to make this kind of statement sitting in Delhi. If they were, even 10% of truth in the stories, we would say, okay, they are professional journalists. But these people twist the stories, and they really are demonizing the Hindu community. What's going to happen on the ground is that people will eventually, take it out on us. And this is where they stand guilty of this whole thing. The other thing is that we in London don't think that there's a Hinduphobia, and we really don't like that word. Phobia means that you are victims, and we would like to say, as a Hindu community, we are not victims. We are there to stand for our rights, and we'll fight for our rights. The phobia word has been used so badly in this country by the other communities that it is really, really, become not really well recognized, and it's become a laughing stock.
I feel, and I don't know, Saloni, but I feel it cannot be accidental. It cannot be because of lack of awareness. It's deliberate. If you are saying that Jai Shri Ram is a Hindu chant which is appropriated by extremists in India. Today when Pandit Satish Sharma ji started his program, he said Jai Shri Ram Arnab to me. Is he a terrorist? Is Pandit Satish Sharma a terrorist? Am I a terrorist to respond equally? When you say Jai Shri Ram is an anti-Muslim Hindu chant, then you are putting a very one-sided narrative, and I don't think this is accidental, because the people who are writing it know that it's not. But they know it is their duty to project it that way. What do you think, Saloni? Is it accidental?
Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Ram.
It is certainly not a terrorist chant. I'm not a terrorist. And I always greet with that Jai Shri Krishna opening. It's the equivalent of, say, Allahu Akbar, for example. Both are praising their God. There is nothing extremist in either of those. We are Hindus and we greet each other with Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Ram. It's being demonized by others as in being used to provoke and to cause terrorism. Of course not. Hindus are very peaceful people. They're being pushed to stand up for themselves where they're being oppressed. And to touch on what Nitinji and Panditji have said, that the press here in the UK are so anti-India, anti-Hindu, the Hinduphobic narrative. I was honoured to attend the protest today that Nitinji and the other organisers had arranged to support them, to support the cause, to support the principle, because The Guardian, BBC, Observer, there are many others that could be named and shamed, have come with this terrible rhetoric of completely demonizing Hindus, and they are always getting away with it unchallenged. And today we were able to show our faces in a good number of people turned up to protest against that. They've had enough of this demonization of fake news, of journalists that are really propagandists. They are faking the news and pushing Hindus to be something that they're not. Hindus are law-abiding, hard-working, tax-paying citizens and should be respected as such. We are not weak or meek. We will stand up if challenged like this and completely provoked and pushed and shoved and oppressed. We are the victims here.
Yeah, you know, the Western media bias is there. I'd like, Elizabeth, your take on this. You've seen this, you've lived in London, you know. Is this bias, can it be denied? Is there no anti-Hindu agenda, anti-India agenda? Why was there not enough Western media coverage on the temple which was vandalized in Leicester, in which a saffron flag was ripped off and removed from a pole? Why was the Western media coverage on the Hindu temple being thronged by mobs, more than 200, 300 strong mobs, gathering outside the Durga temple in Birmingham, chanting, intimidating the worshippers? Why was that why was that not front page news? Why was that not a headline item? Why was that not discussed intensely as a classic example of intolerance in the United Kingdom, which is a challenge to the British way of life itself?
It is, and I think it is a question of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So Indians in the UK are a phenomenal success story. I still live in the UK part-time after 13 years of living there full-time, and it is really remarkable to see the role that Indians play in the UK, and their success has happened quietly. They don't make as all your guests know here, they don't make a big deal of or big fuss of anything they do. They just succeed. But the problem is if you're not the squeaky wheel, you don't get the grease. And I think maybe that's what's happening here. And we should also remember that a number of the perpetrator of this violence traveled to Leicester from other parts of the UK. So it wasn't even so much, it is not even so much an issue of Leicester being a trouble spot. It's people who are intent on committing violence have traveled there to commit violence. And then there is the other thing, which is what one of the other guests mentioned, the role of disinformation. Some of these perpetrators of the violence have been fueled up by misinformation, by disinformation, and really disinformation is the poison of our age. It clearly does no good to any society to have people act on incorrect information, and this is where we are at the moment. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for the people in Leicester, and it's a tragedy for the UK, especially considering what an incredible role Indians, Hindus and other Indians, but play in the UK as a society, including its success as in all kinds of areas, from the economy to science.
You know, Panditji wants to say something. Panditji, I think there should be some pushback. And I think what we saw outside the Guardian office today was pushback. There needs to be some serious pushback, intellectually argued, well presented, so that there's a greater share of voice for people like you.
It's going to happen, and in fact, some things have already happened. I know that the Home Office here has lodged a complaint with the BBC and instructed them to establish exactly what the facts were on the ground, and on what basis did they put forward this notion of right-wing fascist Hindutva BJP strawmanism. So these are being taken up at the highest level. But there was one thing I wanted to really emphasize, and that was, for the first time, there was a huge amount of support from the Indian news media space, from the Indian Twitter space, and from the Indian portals, who are now being able to monitor everything. 200,000 tweets, I think, came out in a very short space of time.
Yes.
In the past, what's happened is the opposition with their network have had the volume. They've been able to drown out anything anybody wanted to say from our perspective. But this time, the support from Bharat itself was wonderful. And I'd just like to give a shout out of thanks to everybody who participated in this. So it's really appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. It's a privilege to do that. And I want to give Nitin wants to add something there. Yes, Nitin ji.
Yeah. The other issue is that the whole idea is that they keep talking about is that India is intolerant. So this time we have smashed that idea. In the letter that I've given to the editor of the Guardian today, we are saying that India actually has tens of thousands of persecuted people living in happily there, from the Zoroastrians to the Baha'is to the Tibetan Buddhists to the Jewish people. So don't teach us about tolerance.
I'm with you in that, Nitin. I'm with you in that, Nitin. But can I say one thing in conclusion? One thing in conclusion. You see, UK and India are going to most probably sign a free trade agreement very soon. Two countries, the two economies, the two countries will come closer together. Our economy is bigger than the British, but there's a lot to gain by working closer together. It is important, however, for us, Nitinji, I'll tell you this, Republic Network is one of India's biggest news networks. We need to stop looking for space in small newspapers like The Guardian. I mean, if you look at the scale of a Republic Network and the scale of a Guardian or Spectator, there's no comparison. So what I'm trying to say is, I am a great believer we can have our own global operations from India. So when Republic opens its global operations, we'll have a base in London, but we should stop looking for 2 column-inch spaces in the Guardian's page number 3. We can have our own narrative, so let's work together for that. And let's hope that this doesn't become a wrinkle in Indo-British relations. I'm sure it won't. I thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, sir. What a pleasure. Such reasonable voices. Things are changing across the world. And viewers, want to remind you that at 12 o'clock tomorrow, today I couldn't, only because the big story with national security implications was the PFI being banned. But we have not forgotten. We have a huge TRP report, the real TRP scam. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not just about the vindication of Republic. It is about exposing falsehoods. And you need to help me make this news viral. So join me tomorrow, 12 noon onwards, on the real TRP scam. The inside story, very explosive details, I can assure you. See you tomorrow, noon. Goodbye.